up? It's Ant Walker with Ringside Intel's UFC 299 picks and predictions. So let's jump right into it with the main event. We've got Sean O'Malley, the UFC Bantamweight champion, defending his title for the very first time against Marlon Vera, the only person to hold a win over him. This fight is very interesting from a style perspective because these two have the perfect style to embarrass one another on any given day. That being said, the first time around, Sean O'Malley was really controlling the range early on until the leg injury, and then Vera was able to capitalize and get the late first round stoppage. I think if we keep O'Malley's legs healthy here, I think this should be a showcase win for him. I see Marlon Vera being very aggressive, as he always does, putting pressure on. But O'Malley with his head dialed in, O'Malley being focused and being ready to counter and being accurate, being him at his best. Very tough challenge for Vera, who's someone who isn't necessarily the most technically gifted, aggressive, strong, powerful, relentless cardio, but not necessarily the most technical fighter out there. I think O'Malley picks him apart, and I see this going to decision simply because Marlon Vera is a very, very tough, durable fighter, has not been finished thus far in his career, and I don't see it happening, although it's going to be a rough 25 minutes for him, if you ask me. Co-main event. Very interesting one, a 5-rounder without a belt on the line. This one is not even designated for a number one contendership. So this was just a rare case of two gentlemen deciding they wanted to fight for 25 minutes as opposed to 15. Dustin Poirier, the former lightweight interim champion, is going to be taking on Benoit Saint-Denis, Frenchman who has been really making waves in the lightweight division with a series of stoppages. Unbeaten since he has made his UFC lightweight debut. I like this fight for several reasons. I mean, this feels like very good matchmaking. Saint Denis is a guy who is very dangerous, but is not necessarily that known outside of the diehard circles. You need a guy like a Dustin Poirier to sort of build his name, to sort of get people on board with how dangerous Saint Denis is. That being said, I don't think that Saint Denis walks away with a win here. I think Dustin Poirier extends his stay as being a perennial contender in the UFC. I believe that Saint Denis, he's emerged as this very dangerous striker as of late, but we're talking about Dustin Poirier, one of the all-time great offensive strikers in mixed martial arts history, certainly in the UFC history. This is going to be a rough night for him, I believe. I think Saint Denis' best chance is to get this fight to the ground, to employ his very, very sick submission game, get some wrestling going. But the problem is, Dustin Poirier is no slouch in that department either. He's not the easiest person to get down. He's certainly not the easiest person to hold down. And if you can't get him down at will, if you can't enact your will, he is going to enact his, and his will is very, very brutal, very punishing. I see this being a long 25 minutes for Saint Denis. I think Dustin Poirier gets his hand raised in a unanimous decision. Our next up on the list is a highly anticipated UFC debut. Bellator standout Michael Venom Page finally makes his way to the octagon against Kevin Holland. From a personality standpoint, you could not find any two guys that are more suited to fight one another. These two are sort of counterparts in that they have these eccentric personalities. They're flashy. They have these bizarre in-cage behaviors that make them very entertaining and make them fan favorites. That is going to bite Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland has the tools to beat Michael Venom Page. He is a skilled offensive grappler, though he doesn't use it all that often. You don't have to worry about his lackluster takedown defense being an issue because Michael Venom Page is by no means a takedown artist. So you pretty much allow for Holland to, if he wants to take it to the ground, if he wants to find that submission, he can. But will he? And I don't think so. This is someone who has made it very clear that his goal is not necessarily to win a belt. His goal is to entertain. His goal is to put on fun fights. And when you stand in front of Wonderboy Thompson with this gentleman's agreement to not take each other down, to not wrestle, and you actually, you lose this fight, a fight that could have been won, I think he does the same sort of thing again. I think this happens all over again, only to more devastating results. I see Michael Venom Page having his moment to make that flashy entrance to the UFC that a lot of people have been hoping he would make after creating a ridiculous highlight reel in Bellator. I see this ending in the second round with MVP earning a performance bonus for this, just the pure savagery of the knockout that we're about to see. So next up, we have a very important contest in the welterweight division that takes place between former title challenger Gilbert Burns and up-and-coming star Jack Della Maddalena. This is a very, very, very interesting fight. Jack Della Maddalena has looked fantastic in his UFC run. He has shown incredible sharp boxing, great power, shot selection is on point. He's not an easy person to keep down, and he's a very dangerous fighter. And Gilbert Burns, he has been on a tear since making the move up to welterweight. And despite the fact that he is getting up there in years, I don't think this is the time where the clock catches up to him. This is going to be a rough fight for both gentlemen, but I think Gilbert Burns gets his hand raised in the end. When I look at what Maddalena has been able to do to other fighters though so far in his UFC run, he hasn't done it to anybody as well-rounded as Gilbert Burns, someone who has this great grappling threat. And we're talking about Gilbert Burns, one of the elite grapplers in the UFC. This is a guy who has just devastating submission technique, very, very powerful takedowns. If he decides he's going to put you on the floor, that's probably where you're going to go, and you may not get up to make it to the next round if he's firing on all cylinders. I do think that Maddalena is good enough to at least not get finished. I think he's going to be good enough to stave off some of Burns' very underrated striking abilities. Maddalena is going to at least be able to put up a fight. A great fight, maybe even enough to earn one judge's scorecard. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about someone whose main avenue to victory is with the hands, and you're doing that against one of the most elite grapplers in the UFC, who also has a very, very dangerous striking game, I don't think that's going to pair out well for him. It's going to be clear that Burns is just better that night. That's the way I feel this one is going. I think we're going to have a very, very close competitive decision. I expect somewhere in the second round, late second round, to be like the real turning point. And then we'll see Burns take over. And our final main card attraction for UFC 299 is former bantamweight champion Petr Yan taking on Song Yadong, a standout from Team Alpha Male. You know, it's very difficult to know what we're going to see from Petr Yan. He hasn't fought in about a year. Last time we saw him, he was losing to Merab Dvalishvili. Before that, he lost to Aljamain Sterling by Sean O'Malley in a close decision. Before that, it was Aljamain Sterling in a close decision. But he's still Petr Yan. He's still this supremely talented fighter who's had a year off to heal, to recover, to retool. And Song Yadong, as talented as he is, we're talking about different levels right now. So until Petr Yan shows that he is truly over the hill, I can't pick against him. I mean, his last three fights, those losses were to the former champion in Aljamain Sterling, the current champion in Sean O'Malley, and the number one contender in Merab Dvalishvili. Three absolute murderers. This doesn't tell me that this guy is over the hill. The close nature of those losses shows that there's a lot left in him. There's a lot of tread on those tires, and I think he gets it done via unanimous decision. Stay locked into Ringside Intel for all your UFC 299 coverage.